Welcome to today's episode of Financial Fluency. Today I have executive health coach Carol Egan with me. Hi, Carol. How's it going?
Hey there, Jen. It's going great. How about for you?
Good, good. I realized I didn't ask before we started. Where are you located?
I'm in Avon, Connecticut.
Avon, Connecticut. Okay, we are very far apart. I'm in Arizona over here. Um,
Oh,
so I am curious how you became an executive health coach. What were you doing before you became a health coach?
well, Jen, I've worn several hats through my day. I was a young single mother, so of course I worked in the restaurant business off and on all my life. But I wanted to be home, of course, with my son during the day as he started getting older. So I became a hairdresser, and I didn't see education in front of me the way that I ended up pursuing it. But I did end up going back to school. And so for many years of my life, I was an adult student. Rather than work, I became a ferocious learner. And so I got a full scholarship, Jen, to Mount Holyoke College.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you know, but it's the first women's college in this country. And
I went to Bryn Mawr, so I'm in the women's
oh,
college arena myself as an alumni. So.
so we're seven sisters. We're sisters, Jen. You didn't know that. And then I went on and I became a high school teacher. I went to Boston College and I got my master's in education. But when I was in that program, I knew that wasn't quite the last stop for me. It wasn't the right fit. I loved my students. I loved the learning, but there was something more I intuitively knew I needed to do. And when you go back to school as an adult, you learn to follow those signs because you don't work that hard, raising a child and going to school to then settle for something that doesn't feel quite right. So I did a nutrition program at Cornell, and then I, of course, went on to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition just to kind of legitimize some of my work. I did some coach training. Well, I studied with Landmark Education and then did their high-level leadership training for several years. So lots of things in between, lots of Tony Robbins in between. And but it was getting sick that brought me to my work. It was, when I was in my early 20s, and I'm going to say even earlier in life, I got sick. But it was around that time in my early 20s that I knew something was terribly wrong. And I would go, at this point I had a team of doctors and nobody could help me. But again, intuitively, I knew something was not right. They wanted me to live on Xanax. I was starting to experience acute anxiety, but my body was breaking down. Of course, I was experiencing acute anxiety. Acute anxiety is just another one of the many symptoms, ways our body is speaking to us to tell us that something's wrong. And a pill is not going to necessarily make that wrong go away. So I threw myself towards the natural health world. And of course, there was a doctor that prompted that decision, a doctor that said something quite scary to me. And nobody in my world, Jen, went to natural doctors. Nobody in my world ate the way this natural doctor was saying that I should eat. So it was an extraordinary learning experience, but I knew I was onto something because incrementally over the years, I knew I was getting better, but I wasn't there.
What was the scary thing the doctor said to you? I'm curious.
Well, here I was. So this was an endocrinologist. So I was diagnosed by Western medicine to have hypothyroidism. Natural doctor said I did not have a thyroid problem. I actually err towards that, with what I know about healing now, I err towards that assessment. But I was young and I didn't know better and I was scared. Who was I to, I didn't have the confidence either. I was sick. I didn't have the confidence to argue with the doctor, but nevertheless, he put me on thyroid medication and I was not getting better. I was still feeling all of this anxiety. And so I went to the CVS. Are there CVSs in Arizona?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now there are.
So a drugstore, CVS. Well, this particular one had that high counter. So the phone was stretched over. So I said to the receptionist at the pharmacy, it's too strong for me. I can't take it. I can't get out of bed. She said, I agree. I'm petite. You can't really tell by, something like this, but by nature, I'm a petite woman. And it was knocking me to my bottom. And she said, but I can't change the medication. Let me call the doctor's office. So she went to talk to the receptionist. I could tell that it moved to the nurse, and then it moved to the doctor, and the doctor asked to speak to me. And I was like, awesome. He'll understand. He got on the phone. He said, I thought you said you trusted me. I said, I do, doctor. He said, look, if you don't take the medication the way I prescribe, it will lead to bigger problems. Do you know what that is? I said, I have no idea. He said, panic attacks. And you know what comes after that. I said, I don't, doctor. He said, suicide. And it was almost like, I'm a Capricorn, very pragmatic and practical, but it was really one of these like otherworldly moments where I don't know how much time passed, but it scared the daylights out of me, because it wasn't that I thought I would commit suicide. It was that he would say something so alarming that he didn't hear me at all. He was not hearing me. I was trying to tell this team of doctors that I don't need to take anxiety. I'm not nervous about something. I don't know why I have irritable bowel or leaky gut syndrome. I don't know why I have chronic yeast infections and chronic vaginal infections and uterus problems. I don't know why I have no breasts, but they're filled with cysts. And I've changed all that, Jen. I've changed all of that. I don't have one cyst in my breast any longer. I don't have irritable bowel or leaky gut any longer. I'm far from having anxiety. I wake up at 5 o'clock every morning full of energy. Because I immerse myself into the world of healing, not illness and wellness. I have clients that come to me, Jen, and I'll have to say, well, I'll go and verse myself on that, like just so I can understand better. But when you're in the world of healing, you don't necessarily need to know all of the nuances of every single disease if you understand why disease manifests. And so, shall I continue? I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, that's fine. There is a slight sound issue. I don't know if you can hear it. Just here and there, it's come up. I'm trying to figure out what it is. But,
I just closed my window.
Okay. Well, we'll edit this little bit out and we'll keep going because I think it is really good. Sorry, my alarm's going off my phone. Okay. I have a few questions though. Can I ask them questions? Okay.
Hey.
So Tyler, edit us back in right here. Okay. So I'm curious though about the doctor saying that suicide is an obvious follow-on from hyperthyroidism. Is there any research to substantiate that? I mean, I've never heard of that before.
It wasn't the hypothyroidism, it was the anxiety.
Okay.
It was the anxiety that I was having that he was correlating to hypothyroidism, but it was not. It was really had more to do with my body breaking down in entirety.
Okay, so now that you've healed these problems, what was the root cause? Was it diet, or what was causing all the symptoms that you had? Digestive
breakdown. It always happens and so the short analogy, the short story is this, Jen. We've been raised to think that we can live on certain food-like substances that are not really food, but we think they're food. We're calling them food, but they're not food. And so the body ends up responding to all of this. I don't know if you remember that old television show, Lost in Space, and you would say, danger, Will Smith. I think, danger, Will Smith. And so this is what happens in the body, is we're eating these food-like substances, and the body keeps going into danger mode. And so there's a cascade of things that happen in the body that are actually not just the food that's harming us, it's the cascade of things that happen because of the food. So it's, you know, it's multidimensional, and I healed that.
Mainly through food?
Well, I tried every other way. May I say I could own 2 homes for the every other way, because we don't want to get, it's a mind, you know, a lot of my work is a mindset shift, you know, work, because we don't want to wrap our head around, could that problem be because of food? And I don't want to take that food out. I like that food. You only live once. Oh, everything in moderation. But the body, our bodies, the statistics of chronic disease, Jen, say that our bodies are breaking down. So, hello, we've got to start looking at this. There's more colon cancer in this country than there is in anywhere else in the world.
Mm. And we do eat a bit differently than a lot of the rest of the world, don't we?
We sure do. We do.
So what do you think about industrialized agriculture in our country? Because, you know, Europe, the EU, a lot of other countries don't allow a lot of things that we do here in terms of both pesticides, genetically modified foods, and the way we treat both animals and plants. So I'm just going to out myself as an anti-Monsanto person. My husband and I used to own the family ranch, so we're pretty anti-industrialized agriculture. What are your takes on it all? What is that doing to our food?
Well, I can join you with that anti-group. I'll tell you a little story that I think you'll find you'll be animated by. Dr. Alejandro Younger said that, and I've not had this experience because I just take gluten out of my clients' diet. So it ends up becoming a non-issue. But I've said to my clients, if they're traveling abroad to Italy or to Europe somewhere, you know, that the gluten, that the wheat is very different. But he says that his clients that would go over to Paris and just indulge into croissants and never have any digestive problem or reaction to it like they would here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm, of course, very much against hybridized, genetically modified, any of it. I'm not for it at all. It goes against the laws of nature. And again, while I am very pragmatic and very practical, for the second time I'm saying that, there are some things that on a natural level, I mean, I could use the word spiritual, but on our organic, natural, scientific level, the earth was created. There's certain things that were put here to sustain us. And our notion and conception of that is so skewed and far off track at this point that we can't even see it. We, the larger collective, are not seeing how far away we are from just the basic universal laws, universal principles of sustaining ourselves rightly.
And I think a lot of us don't actually know how to feed ourselves, especially if you take away a few staples like wheat.
Yes.
I mean, give us this day our daily bread. I'm not religious myself, but how long have people relied on bread or bread-like substances to be a centerpiece of a meal? When I was a kid, my parents nicknamed me the sourdough kid because I loved sourdough bread. And I probably would have bread of some kind with every single meal. I'd have cereal for breakfast, maybe toast as well, a sandwich for lunch. And usually I liked making whatever was for dinner into a sandwich too, if I possibly could, like put bread around it. My daughter can't eat wheat. She's allergic to wheat, dairy, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, and shellfish. And it is so interesting being like, oh.
So let me offer something up about that.
Okay.
And that is, we're going to test positive. I tested positive to everything, pretty much.
What do you mean by test positive? Positive for what?
She's allergic to this, and this, your daughter. So there could be some digestive issue there.
Well, she has a white blood cell disorder. It's called eosinophilic esophagitis.
I had that. They wanted me to do a bone marrow transplant.
Oh, I did not know about that. They didn't suggest that to us. Maybe because she was 4.
Not yet.
But,
Not yet.
Huh. Yeah, so with hers, it's a white blood cell reaction rather than like either a histamine or an anaphylactic reaction. It takes a bit longer, but by the time it was diagnosed, she was scarred in her esophagus. I mean, they took her off all food for almost 2 years while we did 90 days on the elemental diet, add 1 food for 90 days, full anesthesia endoscopy with biopsies to test if she could eat soy and eggs were okay, but like each other thing, it took us almost 2 years to go through the whole route of testing. And she's still mostly tube fed at this point.
Jen, I'm happy to talk to you about that, privately a little bit to give you a little more insight. I don't know I don't want to go too far off track in our call, but you let me know how you'd like me to respond, or we can do this later. And
Well, sure. But what's interesting to me was when she was diagnosed, I asked about the long-term, lifelong outcomes, because I know anaphylaxis, sometimes it can reduce as you get older and things like that. And they said, we've only been diagnosing this for 15 years. So who knows? Which made me think, did it not exist, a couple generations ago, or was it just never diagnosed because it requires biopsies from your tissue? It's hard to say. I mean, are we developing new diseases now, or?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. That started in the 90s. We have an explosion of autoimmunity, Jen.
It seems like it. It seems like I meet people with all kinds of Hashimoto's and, all these things I'd never heard of.
Lupus, premature, everything. It's just, and so sometimes I'm so unguarded in the way I speak, but that I don't know if I get myself in trouble. But if you look at the emergence of pharmaceutical medications in the 50s, and so then, give it a few years, and the bodies are starting to, we're not talking now, Jen, we're not talking just about one generation, we're talking about intergenerational. So I say this, I feel like I was born in a womb that was imbalanced. So my mother had a yeast overgrowth in her body. How would I not have it? How would I not have it? It makes no sense. See, Jen, this is where it gets so important. And that's the distinction of the work that I do. I don't help people eat healthy. I help people heal their body. It's very different. It's very different because people think eating healthy is gluten-free bread, is maybe not even that, but having a salad once in a while. No, the statistics, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 out of every 2 of us has a chronic disease. 1 out of every 4 of us has 2 or more chronic diseases. 7 out of 10 of us, Jen, will die of a chronic disease. Now, I don't know what you call an epidemic, but those numbers are not suggestive of a little bit here, a little bit there is going to hold the day for us. And see, the thing is, some people could say, I'm fine. I'm taking a pill. I'm fine. The pill is masking, is stopping the symptom, but it's not healing the problem of why you're feeling like that. We've got to start stepping back and asking smart questions. Why am I having this symptom? And what was I experiencing before that I ignored? And, I say this, Jen, I really firmly believe this. And it's based on science. It's not based on opinion or hyperbole here. It's we're all entitled to live healthy, a healthy life. And so what I was going to say to you before is, I take a pill, I'm fine. You're not. The problem is still escalating and progressing if you don't start taking healing measures. You say, I'm fine. Well, how is that problem that is really progressing without any intervention, how is that affecting your sleep? How is that affecting your creativity? Your emotional well-being? Like, you might meet people that seem like they're half crazy, and we dismiss them, and we say, and we have all of these opinions and judgments around people. Well, maybe they're really sick. And maybe so are you for being so judgmental. And it's not that you want to be judgmental, but maybe there's imbalance in your body. So it becomes really important to look at unhealthiness and all the ways it radiates out into our way of being in the world. And how it impacts our relationships. First and foremost, with ourselves, our relationship with ourselves. Then the way we treat people. Jen, we've all had these moments. There have been times where, especially when I was very sick, I don't want to be not nice to people. I don't want to be not nice. But then we develop a whole way of being. Seems complex, but fortunately the solution is easy.
Okay, what's the solution?
The solution is simply you have to take out foods that the body doesn't recognize as food and hard to digest foods. And you have to take in foods that are healing and quell the inflammation in the body. So that would be, the quick answer is this. The five top inflammatory foods are, in order of most offensive to least offensive, is gluten. Gluten is known to be super antagonistic in the digestive wall. Second, gluten, dairy, sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. Now let's say your listeners are thinking, forget it. What's left to eat?
That's all the good stuff.
I'll tell you what's left to eat, but let's say that some of the listeners are saying what's left to eat, but there's somebody else who's listening and is saying, whoa, you're pressing some buttons here, Carol. I think I'm going to try this. So you're going to take those 5 foods out for 2 or 3 weeks. And then when you add them back in, you're going to add them one at a time in a 24-hour interval. And you're going to see how your body responds. More times than not, people have noticed a response to every single one of those. So now you say, okay, I'm going to take them out. You're pressing a button for me, Carol. I'm going to play the game. There's 2 things I'm going to tell you to do. Number 1 is you've got to play with your brain. You've got to train your mind. Because if you don't, you're going to falter. This is why you can go to any one of these big fancy schmancy caloric reduction programs that are online that, one of our famous people, who I adore her, but she is not a health spokesperson, that you can eat bread every single day and lose 26 pounds. Yes, you can, because you've reduced calories, but you're not reducing foods that are causing inflammation in the body. And if you don't do that, you're not going to heal whatever could be causing you troubles.
How do you know if you have inflammation?
You have symptoms. For instance, dare I respectfully say, and I proceed with more commitment to the work that I do than you might imagine. But like your daughter's symptoms, your daughter's allergies are signs that there's inflammation in the body. And it's called imbalance.
The hard thing with her, so my daughter also has autism and is mostly nonverbal. So the symptoms that It took us so long to get her diagnosed because it was only observable symptoms, appearance of pain, and she had projectile vomiting. The projectile vomiting was kind of a giveaway that something was really, really wrong, and constipation and things like that. But for people who feel like maybe I'm a little sluggish, I mean, the things that you targeted there are addictive substances, most of them. I mean, alcohol, caffeine, those two people rely on. I mean,
and
they
sugar,
should.
but Jen, sugar is,
and sugar, yeah, that one is so hard for people to give up. If they hear you talking and they're like you said, I'm mostly okay, surely it's not that. Like, what things would let them know that, yes, I do have inflammation and I really should try this? What are those symptoms?
the early signs of imbalance are things like allergies, excess weight. I mean, constipation is a further along symptom. Constipation is a further along symptom. But earlier signs are dry cough, yeast in the throat, thrush. That's yeast. That's the overgrowth of yeast that's spread throughout the body. How do I know it? I lived it. How do I know it even more than beyond the personal? I've studied it for 30 years. I've studied it for 30 years.
So without the doctor telling me I had yeast, I probably wouldn't necessarily know. Well, what about, you were saying the vaginal yeast infections as well? Like, lots of women get those. Is that potentially part of it?
Yes. Yes. Every symptom, Jen, you can make it real easy. Every symptom is telling you that there's some level of inflammation. And it's called imbalance. And inflammation is simply the body is reacting to. So let's say gluten's going into the body. The body then goes into danger mode. So it starts producing excess mucus. Because mucus actually surrounds stuff that seems to be a danger, to help remove it from the body. But if it's continuously producing excess mucus, it can't, now it's going to start building up a mucoid plaque on the digestive wall.
Oh, and then you're not absorbing as well, right?
So now you're not absorbing as well. Now, Jen, all this stuff keeps coming in, right? Because people are not heeding these signs. We weren't taught to and trained. Our lives didn't train us to heed these signs of imbalance as something we need to really act on. So now we keep eating these foods that we say we love, we're not going to live without. And there's a mucoid plaque that's built up. And now food can't pass through. So now waste matter can't get out. And it starts to calcify and harden. Now you've got a thicker coating. But you don't have just a thicker coating. You have, it's pathogen and yeast and mold and fungus start to grow on this stuff that doesn't belong there.
That sounds gross.
It is gross. And this is the beautiful thing about my work, Jen. We want to look beautiful. And you see some women, they're coated with makeup, and you can see that they're not healthy underneath. There's a thick layer of makeup because they're trying to look beautiful and hide what's really not there. And how can we look and feel our best and take it another step further? Do our best on the planet if we're walking around with all of this going on inside here.
Yeah, that is true. So just to play slight devil's advocate for a second, one thing that I've wondered about, especially dealing with all of my daughter's myriad of medical stuff, which, you know, no parent expects when you have a child that you're going to have all these things come up, but a lot of us do these days. One thing I've wondered about is, in another time, my daughter would not have survived. Like, we had medical intervention in pregnancy and we had medical intervention in birth. We've had lots of medical intervention since. Thank God for medical intervention. My daughter is amazing and I'm so glad she's here. At the same time, when you look at like just a few generations back where medicine was, and this is the Western medicine that gives us all these drugs and everything, they are keeping us alive longer. We're living longer. I mean, there was a time when 32 was life expectancy for a human. Sometimes I can't help wondering if the old, cancer and all these things that are killing us now in our 70s, 80s, and 90s, if they just didn't exist as much before because we weren't living as long, we weren't able to keep people alive as long. I don't know. Have you thought about that ever? I'm just throwing that question in there randomly.
Well, how I'm going to answer it is this way, Jen. I learned the hard way that there's a place for Western medicine and there's a place for common sense. And the more we apply common sense, the least amount of time we're going to need Western medicine. Mm-hmm. But see when I told somebody that I was going to write a book called, Get Back to Your Common Sense, they're like, people don't even know what that is, Carol. And I'm going to give that person credence for what they said, that they're probably right, that our level of common sense is not what it once was. So again, I'm going to say to you that the only way I'm going to answer that question is I think that we've become smarter in some ways, and
except on how to feed ourselves actual food.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
Well, we are a few generations away from the farm for most people now. Like
yes, that's right.
Family farms are. I mean, my husband and I sold up last year and left our ranch after 14 years. It's hard. It is like the people who get the subsidies are the massive farms. The people who have the like profit margins that can weather difficulties are the massive farms. And it's hard work, and it's being out in the middle of nowhere. And most people live in cities now. Most people don't do that. Most people eat stuff in packages and from the store, not from the source. Like the idea, I love the idea of a whole foods diet, but I have to admit I haven't done it myself, not entirely. I mean, we have meals where I'm like, look, everything we ate is a whole food this time. Yay, we did it. But a lot of times stuff still comes out of packages. So how do we do it? And besides just changing our diet, what else brings us into healing? And then I'm going to take you to some financial stuff next. But
so of course we're gonna return to that middle little thing I slipped in, the mindset. We've got to embrace, and what I like to say is this, and it worked for me. This is literally before I knew the language of mindset shift. Yuck, right? Like, just take control of your mind, like direct your thoughts, be in charge of your life. But before I got, that was my mind thinking then. Like I was a young single mother, Jen. So I have a sassiness about me that's kind of ballsy. Do you know what I mean? Where you just suck it up and do it. Just do it. And so what I did though was I'm living in Boston in a studio apartment with a closet, with my kitchen no wider than a closet or the size of this little square I'm sitting in right now. And I of course had been on the health journey for quite some time now. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm going to make this fun. I'm just going to create this as fun. And so that's what I'm going to say to you and to the listeners is just create healthy as fun. We want more fun in our lives. So if you can really create that it's not hard, that it's not a pain in the ass, that it's not difficult, that I don't know what to do, but if you create it as fun, I promise you, the universe will conspire on your behalf. There's no question about it. I know it. I teach it to my clients, and I'm sharing it with you now, and I live it. So now what do you do? So I have a little playful spin on that's an easy access to, well, simple, but not necessarily easy. Every day, if you take on the Wholly Trinity, but it's WHOLLY Trinity. It's a 3-part kind of slam dunk first steps to really start creating some healthy eating habits. If you have a green juice every day, if you have a green smoothie every day, and you have one meal-sized green salad, a bowl that you would normally put in front of your family is your meal. If you do that every day, I guarantee you, you will start to shift your health. Enough.
So it's a juice and then a smoothie and a salad.
Correct.
Do you have recipes on your website or something to help?
My website is loaded with recipes, and I can tell you this: if somebody that's listening signs up for one of my opt-ins that we'll talk about at the end, I would be happy to share, and they email me, I would be happy to share with them something quite special. And it's called the Wholly Trinity Guide. And it has over 100 recipes of juices, smoothies, and salads.
That sounds good. Yeah, I've definitely had times where I own a juicer and a Vitamix. And I've had times where I've done well with both, but it fades. You know what it is? It's when I put the whole thing away. If I keep it out on the counter, clean it, and just push it back, then the next morning it's right there. When I clean but I hate clutter on my counters, and then I forget to use it.
So let's do this.
Okay.
This is almost like a slash coaching session.
Okay.
So
that's my favorite thing about having a podcast. I get coached every week, you know.
So I'm going to say a few things. Yeah, but this is going to be super beneficial for listeners. The first thing is, Jen, don't take on all three if it feels overwhelming, because that could be toxic energy, stress. Stress is as toxic as unhealthy foods. So don't take all three on. Maybe you say juice. Why would I start with juice? Smoothies are easier. Well, juice is my top recommendation. Why? Because it doesn't require any digestive fire. If you know that you could be imbalanced on some level, you the listener, you the general person, not just you, Jen, but if you know that you could be experiencing imbalance on some level, it's going to be happening in your digestive system first. So there could be, what if your absorption and your assimilation is impaired? You don't have to worry with the juice. The juice is like an IV of nutrition going right to your cells. It's the best. It's my top recommendation. It's changed my life.
Okay. Green juice.
So perfect. So no, now somebody who's listening says, I don't have a juicer. I can't afford to buy a juicer right now. Okay. Start with a smoothie. I don't have a blender either. Okay, then make sure that you have a meal-sized salad every single day.
Okay.
Boom. That's easy enough right there. And then you incrementally add in the next one. So maybe you're having a juice 4 or 5 times a week, and you say, I'm going to have a smoothie those other days. Maybe I'm going to, and then you say, I'm ready to add 2 in a day. So you just play with it that way. Oh, I lost my thought. You asked me, this is so important. It's so important. Jen, let's play it this way. Why would you want to juice?
Because, well, to be honest, I don't like eating salads that much. So when I make a juice and I put like 4 handfuls of spinach or a spinach baby kale mix or something, I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of salad I don't have to eat now. That's what's going on in my mind.
Okay, so Jen, why? I'm going to ask you the same question. Mm-hmm. Why do it? Why not just buy Tropicana orange juice? Why do it?
Actually, the acid in orange juice, I don't drink orange juice that much, for one thing. Plus, I do feel like it's pretty sugary, isn't it? Orange juice?
It is. It's yes. I'm kind of a sugar Nazi, but what I'm trying to get at is this, Jen. When we know
it's fresh.
Yes, but what does fresh make available to you? There you go.
I imagine the nutrients are better than something that's been shipped around the country in a carton or is concentrate or.
And
right?
why would that matter to you?
Um, well, the whole reason for doing whole foods anyways, right, is to not have any additives or preservatives, to be getting the nutrients straight from the plant or the animal or the place that it came from, right?
So let me say this.
I feel like I'm sounding very, very childlike here saying that, isn't
No,
it?
you're not. You're actually spot on. You're
Okay.
actually spot on. But I'm going to say it like this. Number one, what you're pointing to is high vibration food versus dead food. If something's in a package, it's kind of a no-brainer that there's no vital nutrition left. It's been packaged. If something is just plucked out of your garden in your backyard, it's kind of a no-brainer that there's more vitality and electricity to turn the body back on. We need electricity. We need high vibration foods to turn our systems all ago. So now that's one side of it. But the other side of it is this, Jen, that you were getting to, is why does it matter? Is what is most important to everything and anything we do. You know, like there's that example. There's a fire and you want to get out of the building, but you're afraid to jump. There's a fire in that building and your child is on the rooftop. You're not going to be afraid to jump. You're going after that child. It's the same thing. When we know why we're doing something, the game changes. And if you took on 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks of what I proposed, eliminating those top 5, adding in the greens, when you added something in, your why would be clearer because you would feel the difference. You would energetically feel the difference in your body. But the other things can also be, which is a little bit harder to access because, it's when we have leverage is when we'll make change. But some people could be very, very sick, Jen, and still not be willing to change. I mean, you've seen it. Old people or sick people walking around with the oxygen tank and they're smoking a cigarette. They've not been inspired by something in life. Something has not inspired them enough to stop. And so we have to continuously look for what would inspire us to want to look and feel our best. Because if you look and feel your best, then you know you can do your best. It's just not questionable, right? I mean, you're living in a clean, healthy body. You're vibrating. Your body's humming with energy, with the earth's energy. It's not possible that you can't do your very best, achieve your very best.
So I'm just going to bring in the financial side of this now, because I do feel like one of the reasons people drag their heels or drag their feet or go kicking, screaming, if they go at all, to changing their diet is the ROI, like the time I would spend on the treadmill versus I could be seeing a client then. Yeah. I could be doing something that has a revenue generating activity. I know you work with executives, right? A lot of your clients are. And I'm sure you've seen this where they've really neglected their bodies in order to forward their career or advance their projects or whatever they're doing. So I think there is a real disconnect in our cultural minds, our America as a whole, where we think that we have to push and drive and strive and work. I mean, I think we're coming back from the 80-hour week idea. That was a very 80s, 90s kind of thing. Like, I think everyone's pulling back a bit from that, especially with all the freelancing since the layoffs with the recession and all that. But like, I know myself, since becoming fully freelanced, I've put on a fair amount of weight in the last 6 months because I feel the drive to sit at my computer and hustle much more than I used to. Yeah. So how do we change that? How do we realize the ROI in getting healthy in terms of our performance and everything we do?
Well, I work out of what I call 3 buckets, Jen, because nutrition is never enough. It's just not enough. It's not, as you say, there's no value in saying I eat healthy. So what? I mean, I'm going to be square. I've sat across either via Zoom or in person and said to clients, I don't give a shit what you eat. But what I do care about is your quality of life. I do care about you living life to your fullest. That is what I'm committed to. And so we look at 2 other areas. So we could say that I pull tools out of 3 buckets: nutrition, mindset, and mindfulness. So if we're sitting at our computer every day without a healthy daily ritual, we're disconnected from ourselves. We don't even know who we are anymore. And whether that's spiritually or just organically. I mean, you can even somebody who is not spiritual can attest to the fact that there's a moon hanging in the sky and you have nothing to do with it. You're breathing right now and you really have nothing to do with that. Your body's just breathing. Your body is just breathing. There's something behind nature that is, and so I help people come back home to themselves so that every decision that they make emanates from this place of centeredness, balance. And that doesn't mean that I'm perfect. It means that I'm very committed. I'm very committed. And so that's how I help people. How do we do it? What's the return on investment? You can't know it until you feel it.
Probably. But I was thinking about a couple of years ago, I read a book called The Fast Metabolism Diet. I don't know if you've ever encountered that one. It includes a lot of elimination, and it has these like cycles. It actually was so complex in what you did 2 days, 2 days, 3 days. We didn't sustain it the full 28 days. But my husband and I both committing to go off alcohol, caffeine, sugar, wheat. I think we went off soy as well, and maybe even corn. It was basically so it was pretty hard, but they had exact things to eat each day. And at first I was like, we're going to do this. My husband dropped 16 pounds in the first couple weeks. It was kind of nuts because he is a beer drinker. He used to brew his own beer and everything. But one thing I noticed was on that diet, it was so strict that we didn't eat out once, the whole, while we were doing it. And we saved a lot of money. It was I felt like it was my new job trying to package up the snacks. Okay, eat this. I'd send him to work with his little phase 1, phase 2 snacks, eat this day. And it was way too much work to sustain. But
so let me give you another easy formula.
Okay, but just on the financial side, I noticed no eating out, no packaged foods. I saved money. I mean, people think eating healthy is more expensive, and maybe getting the juicer might be an investment. But I think buying just things in the produce aisles instead of all the packaged aisles really does save you money. Even
Jen, I don't paint my nails anymore.
Yeah,
that was something that happened from my financial decision to spend my money on my food. Not all of these. I still get pedicures, but I mean, all of the different bodily waxes, all of those little, indulgent self-care things. I do different types of self-care things now, but my nails are not painted because, but see, this is it. When you choose this, you make different choices. So you're really just, rallying your money in different ways. I don't buy bottles of wine for my every night. I don't. I know very fine wines. As I said, I worked in restaurant businesses off and on through every phase of life, whether I was earning a degree or hustling tables as a young single mother. I worked in very high-end restaurants and learned some beautiful fine wines, and I know them and I love them. But I'm not spending my money on those all the time. And
do you drink any alcohol at all?
Periodically I do, yeah.
Yeah, like a wedding or something?
Well, the funny thing is, Jen, like this past Christmas, I didn't have any.
Mm-hmm.
But lately I've had I love Prosecco.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do drink it periodically, because, but it's in the context of a different level of balance as well. I would not do it every night because I'm a 5 a.m. morning person. So
Mm-hmm.
drinking alcohol, a lot of alcohol every night is going to work against that. So we make choices around the ways we know we're helping our body help our lives excel. It's really about helping our businesses excel. So you want to talk about money again. You want your business to excel. Your body's got to excel. If your body's not excelling, your business can't excel at the same level, on an energetic level. So let's go back to the quick formula so we don't forget that. It's as simple as this, Jen. Protein in vegetables or starches in vegetables. That's it. That's called quick exit combinations. So if you eat foods in only those combinations, it's going to be able to leave your body more efficiently because one is not slowing the other down.
So you never do starches and proteins together?
I do not.
Which is so, I'm just thinking beef and potato, roast and potatoes. That's so traditionally what we do.
Irish.
Yeah.
I was raised on meat and potatoes, Jen.
Shepherd's pies, come on. My husband's British.
That's right.
Pasties, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, and so in terms of and that's with no breads, no. Okay, so are bread starches or carbohydrates? Some vegetables are carbohydrates, right? And
yeah. So starchy vegetables all vegetables are carbohydrates.
Okay.
All vegetables.
What about grains? Are grains in there anyways, or are you doing no grains?
If you want to continue with grain, I would recommend quinoa.
Okay.
Quinoa is actually a seed. So it's not going to, how when you cook rice, the water gets very murky and almost gelatinous.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff. We want to get that out,
Oh, okay. So no rices even, huh?
Well, quinoa. Stick with the quinoa for the 3 weeks, just to experiment. You want high vibration foods. So it's all of these fancy, far out, fandangled recipes are kind of out of sight and confusing, conflicting, troublemaking. It's hurting the larger population right now. People don't know what to do. Just eat protein in vegetables and starches in vegetables. And when I say starches, I make a big roasting pan, Jen, and I'll get red beets and I'll slice them thick like this. Slice sweet potatoes thick like that. Big chunks of carrots and parsnips. All these root vegetables, and I'll cover it with 1 or 2 big Vidalia onions chopped up, with garlic and rosemary, and roast that. Little bit of olive oil, and roast that in the oven. Have that with a big monster salad. Super delicious and super satisfying. Make sure in your salad you put avocados, olives, quick dressing, 2 dressings for the listeners, warm marinara sauce and salsa. You'll satisfy your Wholly for pasta. And I'm telling you, all my clients love that choice. The other last thing that I would love to make sure that for cravings is intermittent fasting. So you talk about saving money. If you're doing intermittent fasting, you're going a longer period of time without eating at all.
How long do you recommend people go? What is the interim for the intermittent?
There's all different theories on it. And what I like to say is, depending on where you're at, you're going to play with it. Like mentally, you might be so far away from going without food that it would cause you more stress than it would be helpful. So you would, if you usually eat breakfast at 7, you push it to 8, to 9, to 10, to 11, to 12, to 1. There are some people in the intermittent fasting world that will isolate it to 6 hours, to 5 hours, some to 3 hours, some to 3 hours. But some people would say, now she's getting crazy. Well, old world culture is, no, you don't eat. People don't eat as much food. Other people on this planet do not eat nearly as much food as we do in this country. And the blue zone people, the locations around the world where people are living the longest, are the ones that are eating on less food, living on less food. They're not eating nearly the way we're eating. So it's just another nice little thing to add into, and it's super awesome for quelling cravings. It's like a magic bullet.
Not eating quells the cravings?
Yes.
So, I mean, would you recommend people do a full 24-hour fast? Is that if they are up for it?
I would be hesitant to recommend that because, okay, everybody is different. So when it comes to making that kind of a recommendation, I would hold back simply because I don't know where the person who's listening, what they would do. But
maybe skip a meal now and then.
Yeah.
And would you switch off which meal? Because actually sometimes, breakfast is that the one to skip?
No.
Interesting. Because I see so many things about weight loss where it says, you should wake up and within 30 minutes eat protein and drink this bulletproof coffee or this green tea or this something. And if you don't, your body will go into like starvation mode and hold on to all the fat all day that you eat or something.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No. See, because there's a very big difference between marketing to make money, marketing to have somebody lose weight, and marketing to somebody to be their most radiant, vibrant self.
When people fast, should they drink lots of water?
There's all different kinds of ways of fasting.
Okay. Does green juice count? I mean, would you go ahead and still have your green juice or not have the green juice?
It depends on where you're at. This is my first green juice of the day now.
Okay. Oh, that's late where you are. It's almost 11 where I am. So you didn't eat yet today, or did you? Oh, interesting. But you know what? I do think when you think about Asian cultures and like 100-year-old yogis, Indian, Chinese, stuff like that, it does seem like they're always very thin.
And they're eating less
Mainly vegetarian, probably. Yeah.
They're not eating these heavy foods that our body doesn't know how to eliminate. Never mind not capable of it.
But we're used to it. I mean, I do find when I change, because I'm going to be honest. I've gone through a number of different diets and programs since having kids. Before having kids, it didn't seem to, I could eat whatever it seemed like and it didn't matter. Once I had my kids and went through bed rest and all these things, it's very, very hard to budge even a pound sometimes. So I've tried a lot of different things, and I ended up feeling over the years that each one I tried new worked less. The first time I did Weight Watchers, it was amazing until I stopped it, and then I tried it again, and it didn't work as well, So I think a lot of us get kind of like diet. Do you think we get diet immune or something? Like our bodies?
I don't teach a diet. I teach a healthy lifestyle. But we do have to have a healing interim to balance the body. Mm-hmm. And in the process, the mindset shifts. For instance, I have a client that we're going to have our last call today, but she's doing a reading at a wedding, so we'll have our last call next week. But when we first started in January, she said, "Carol, I don't want anything extreme. I just want to lose weight." I said, "Awesome. Let's do it. But see, the more that she learned and understood why we were doing what we were doing, the more she leaned in. And the more she leaned in, the more muscle she developed around it, the work that we were doing. Mm-hmm. And so it's the return on investment is only what I can say to you is there was a time that when I was in my mid-20s, that I looked older than, I'm going to say in many ways, than I look now. I have saw a former employer last year. He said, "You look better than you did 20 years ago."
That's
And
nice to hear.
well, and it wasn't so much even the flattery of that. It was more, that's how bad I looked. I looked bad. I felt bad. My brain wouldn't work. I was a full-time student when I first started. When I first started, I was only taking one class. My brain wouldn't work. But because I started turning my health around, I ended up graduating cum laude and magna cum laude from, so let me say this. You look at somebody and you say, do they look healthy? And then you look at somebody and you say, do they look healthy? You don't go to the person who they've got a game that they're talking and they don't look it. You've got to, as Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. How many times did I go to his events and he'd say, I can tell who out there who's taking care of themselves. I can tell just by the way you're sitting. I can tell by the way your body looks. And so when it comes to, heeding the advice of somebody, you want to ask the questions. Are they out to make money? Some of the names that you talked about, the different diet philosophies, they're money makers. I'm out to make a fair, well, I'm out to make a better than a fair living, but my commitment is driven by my commitment to health and well-being and what I know is possible. That noise, huh? Is that?
I have to apologize. I think my husband's vacuuming. We have house guests coming, and I told him I would be recording till 11. So we've just hit 11, and I think he thought, oh, I can vacuum now. So okay. I apologize, listeners. I think we're just going to leave this bit in because we're so close to wrapping it up here. But
okay.
we have an elliptical above this room too, and every now and then he'll, without realizing that I can hear it, get on his elliptical. So yeah, that's my husband. But thank you so much for all of these tips that you've given us. I will be sure to include some links to the to your website and the opt-ins that you talked about. Is there one you particularly recommend based on what we talked about?
Well, I would say this: if you know that you're bumping up against excuses after excuse after excuses, that you would definitely want to check out the Eliminate Excuses. I really did pull from the 3 buckets and included a little something there to help with mindset, blah, blah, blah. The other one is just easier, 5 to Thrive, 5 things to really, put your eye on. And I talk about, in that one, I do talk about the Wholly Trinity also.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great talking to you about all this stuff.
I really, really enjoyed talking with you too, Jen. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll see you around the internet.
I'll see you around the internet.
Bye.
Bye-bye.